Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to my latest video for my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be going into my running back rankings. Again, these are my initial rankings for this upcoming season. Then I'm going to be doing the wide receivers and tight ends next week. You'll see updates on these rankings between now and throughout the whole season. I'm not going to do special videos for them, but you'll see them like splashed into my other future content videos. I'll post them on social media, whatnot. But let's just go ahead and get right into the meat and potatoes of this. Just like I said last time, for the running back position, I'm just going to release my top 50 rankings whenever I do this. So I'm going to go through them 10 at a time for today. And then what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to pick players I definitely want on my team. And then even though they might be ranked high in my rankings, I'm going to let you guys know some players that I'm kind of iffy on. I might be staying away despite the value that they can bring as long as everything does hit for them during the upcoming season. So let's just go ahead and get into this, get into my top 10 running backs for this upcoming NFL season. Obviously, I'm a big Colts fan. I'm a Badger fan. I've been a Jonathan Taylor stan since day one, since he ever stepped on the field there up in Madison, Wisconsin. So yeah, he's my number one back. I want him on my team. Of course I'm going to do, especially when he plays for my favorite team. Who wouldn't want Taylor? He's just what he's done in 2 years has been amazing. But other guys in my top 10 list, I'm going to be going for Dalvin Cook. I think he's in a good situation with him being in the Kevin O'Connell offense. I think they're going to use him more as a wide receiver in that offense, so that he gives him even more of a value in PPR leagues. Other guys I like on this list, Najee Harris. Najee Harris is, I should have pulled that stat before I started this video, but he's like one of 8 running backs since 2019 that have averaged over 50 rushing yards per game and 25 receiving yards per game. And he did that as a rookie. And then you got to think with either, regardless of who the quarterback is, Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett, they're going to rely on this young back. He's going to see so many touches. As I always say, volume is king. Get Najee Harris on your roster if you can. And then, yeah, I do like Nick Chubb. I don't have to really go into that too much. DeAndre Swift, though, that's the guy I'm super high on. I think he's going to be a guy that can push for the RB1 spot if everything bounces right in Detroit's way, as long as that offensive line stays healthy. He's entering his 3rd season in the league, and I think he's set to have a breakout season and really, elevate, play to the ceiling of the talent that he has as a running back. And then I still am a big fan of Aaron Jones, just like I talked about in my quarterback ranking video. I think the Packers offense, you're going to see them kind of switch and be more dependent on the running game. And of course, Aaron Jones is such a big threat as in the screen game. He's basically their, I mean, not basically, he is. He's their best skill position player now that Davante Adams is no longer on the team. So yeah, I'm all about getting Aaron Jones on my roster. And knock it off, Leonard Fournette. Everybody kind of, he gets such a hard time, but man, he's been one of the most consistent pros over the last couple years since he's joined the Bucs, and basically Tom Brady got his career back on track. And the little stat I mentioned about Najee Harris, Leonard Fournette's one of those 8 backs have done that as well. He was in that stat column when I collected it last year too. So he's basically as steady as a possible that you can get. And now with basically just Keyshawn Vaughn, Rashaad White, the rookie behind him, he's going to dominate the touches there in Tampa Bay. So I expect another big year for Leonard Fournette. Now, if there's some guys I'm kind of iffy on, I'll go ahead and say it. Like, I love Christian McCaffrey. He produces when he's on the field, but unfortunately he's been banged up over the last few years. But you have to respect what he does when he's on the field. So that's why I still think he's definitely capable of being a RB1 by the end of the season. But the injuries do scare me. Same thing with Derrick Henry. He's coming off that Lisfranc injury. Yeah, he did play in that playoff game when he came back last year. But with all these attempts and everything, at some point he's got to catch up to him. And obviously with him being with AJ, the departure of AJ Brown, they're going to be able to line up 8 men in the box a lot against Tennessee until that passing attack can prove to be a threat at the beginning of the season. So I just see very limited production for Derrick Henry, to be quite honest, this year. I could see him having one of his down years. So I mean, I definitely see it. He could definitely be an RB1. That's why he is number 3 on my list. but there's something about this situation in Tennessee that kind of makes me I'd be okay passing on him, and maybe even if I'm at my like the number 3 spot on the draft board, I might select Najee Harris over Derrick Henry. Now let's move into my next 10 backs. Doing the kind of the same thing, guys I like. Surprisingly, I know I gave everything negative about Christian McCaffrey, but man, something tells me Saquon's set for a huge year. Maybe I'm just holding on hope he's gonna be that talented player that he is. He's in that stat I talked about with Najee Harris and Leonard Fournette. Whenever he's on that field, he is producing, and they don't really have much competition for his touches. He sounds so motivated coming out of training camp in these first couple days, and I just think Saquon's going to have a Saquon type of season, and if I can get him as my RB2, I really like that situation if I can pair him with a strong first-round running back. Another guy I like Javonte Williams. Even though they brought back Melvin Gordon, just how he finished last year, I know they're going to want to eventually give him the lion's share of the touches. Maybe they split it at the beginning of the year, kind of like they did last year in Denver, but I think by the end of the year, he's going to be dominated in touches just because of how talented he is. And now he's in a better with Nathaniel Hackett. Nathaniel Hackett is coming from Green Bay, right? So remember how Green Bay was using Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon last year? Well, they can do that with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. So that's why I still like Javonte Williams despite them bringing back Gordon for this upcoming season. And then let's see here. Then Cam Akers. I think he's in a great situation. I can't believe how fast he came back after that Achilles. With him coming back that fast and not re-injuring or anything, that means he had a chance to fully have a healthy offseason, prep for the upcoming season. He's in that Sean McVay offense, so I could think he can be a high-producing back for you. Now, some guys that I kind of worry about in this range, I wonder if Joe Mixon's going to take a step back and it's going to be more of a Joe Burrow pass-happy offense with the other wide receivers in that offense. But I still like that he's tied to I almost said Zach Stacy, the Bengals head coach. Anyways, I think that with him being in the run-oriented system, he could still be that RB1 type of back for you on your team. And then obviously Alvin Kamara. So if Kamara wasn't facing this looming suspension, I would definitely have him in my top 10 backs there in New Orleans. But for those that are unaware, he has, I believe, a battery charge he's facing from an incident in Las Vegas. And it sounds like every time I hear anybody talk about it, it does sound like it's going to be a 6-game suspension. But man, if the draft board falls your way, where maybe you can get an RB1 and RB2, and then maybe everybody's passing on him because of the suspension, and you can get him as your flex or something like that, sign me up all day. I'll hold on to him on my bench and get Alvin Kamara for our late season run. And then I love Antonio Gibson as a player. I've been a stan for him. I gave him a glowing scouting report when he was coming out of Memphis. And I think he can take that next step into stardom. But we also have to keep in mind they did bring back J.D. McKissick. They got the young kid out of Alabama as a rookie running back. So there is more mouths to feed in that backfield. And I'm kind of wondering if his production is going to take a step back because of that. But I still recognize the talent that kid has. And if he puts it all together this season, he can really blow up and help a team, a fantasy football team, get to the championship. Now let's move into my next set of 10 players, kind of highlighting some players I like, highlighting some guys I do have my worries about. Guys I definitely like, I will go ahead and say A.J. Dillon. I think he's a monster, quadzilla, if you say. But the reason why is going back to what I said about Aaron Jones and what I said about Aaron Rodgers in my quarterback rankings. I think you're going to see the two of these guys kind of dominate the touches within this offense. And, if anything happens to Aaron Jones for any reason with an injury, A.J. Dillon all of a sudden is an RB1 for you. So I think he's going to see an uptick in touches this year. He's going to be their goal line back, so he's going to see the opportunity to get you touchdowns. And, man, you would be spending 2 high draft picks on 2 running backs from the same backfield, but man, if I did draft Aaron Jones, I would definitely be highly thinking about drafting A.J. Dillon, just so I got maybe I might have to do a video on handcuffs, but probably the best handcuff I believe that you can have for the upcoming season. And then J.K. Dobbins there in in Baltimore. Obviously, he's in a run-heavy offense with Lamar Jackson. He is coming off an injury, so we do have to see where he is. But it does sound promising that he should be ready by the beginning of the season. He's averaging like 6 yards a carry, which was the highest average for a running back with over the last. Since 2019 that had at least 100 touches. So whenever he hasn't gotten the opportunity in his first couple years, he's produced. He just had that unfortunate injury last season, but with there's no legit wide receiver, right? I mean, they got Rashaad Bateman. He's a first round talent, but he's still got to prove himself. They got Mark Andrews, but other than that, there's not like that guy that's like for sure going to help Lamar outside of Mark Andrews. So J.K. Dobbins can have a huge role in this offense, and if everything clicks right and that kid hits on his talent, he's a guy that not only can be a strong RB2, but if he's dominating touches in that offense outside of Lamar for the rushing attempts, he could be up there in RB1 if everything goes right. And then Tony Pollard, man, I do believe this kid is eventually going to take over and start seeing more touches. I did hear they're using him more as in a slot like situation coming out of practice over the last couple days, and he's one of those handcuffs I definitely want on my roster. I could see him being an RB2 at some point, just because either Zeke is not producing at a clip that they can count on within that offense, or just like he has a strong role, or possibly an injury happens to Zeke. Some guys I might be concerned about drafting. I do have my worries with Josh Jacobs. Now that Josh McDaniels has came over from New England, you're going to see what they do there in New England, right? They're going to use a number of backs. They've been pretty open about that. I mean, they didn't give Josh Jacobs that fifth-year extension. He's on the final year of his rookie contract. I'm hearing more and more out of practice reports that Kenyon Drake's going to have a role within this offense, especially at the receiving end. So if Josh Jacobs is not going to be part of like the offense as far as getting the receptions, if he's just going to be a kind of first and second down typical New England back situation, man, you're going to see a limited opportunity for him to produce at the value that you're going to end up drafting him at. So that's why I have a lot of concerns with Josh Jacobs. And other than that, I mean, there's not many concerns. Maybe Damien Harris because of the presence of Ramondre Stevenson. But the other guys, like, same thing. Rashaad Penny, he produces. He had a huge year last year, but he is injured his first few years. Kenneth Walker's there. But man, I still think he could end up paying off for you in that situation. But there are those worries. Moving into my next set of top 10 guys. We're kind of getting into the range on these rankings, 30 through 50, where these are guys that you're probably going to draft. I mean, depending on your strategy, if you're going 0 RB or whatnot, these are guys you're going to probably be drafting to either be your flex, either be depth players at the running back spot, or maybe they are going to be your RB1, RB2, just because you went maybe wide receiver heavy, quarterback, tight end at the beginning of your draft. But some of the guys are in good situations if you go that route. I would say Breece Hall there in New York. He does have the competition with Michael Carter, as you can see on this list. I love what Michael Carter brings. But Breece Hall does have that juice to him. He has that home run ability, and there are some promising things that he's going to have a significant role in this offense, in the Jets offense, and that is that's an offense that comes from the Kyle Shanahan system. And usually, if you can get your hands on a Shanahan system back, that's going to possibly win you a league. And then another situation I'm watching here is the James Cook and Devin Singletary situation. Now, Zach Moss is still there in Buffalo, so there is that concern. But I am a big fan of James Cook's game and what he can bring to the passing attack in Buffalo. They can line him up out at wide receiver at times, and I think he's a guy where you're probably not going to get much value out of him at the beginning of the year, but I think his role will steadily increase as the season goes. And with Devin Singletary, he's on the final year of his contract, so eventually they're going to want to get Cook more involved so he's prepped for the following season. Now again, Zach Moss is there, so you do have to watch the situation with the Buffalo backs, but if there's one Buffalo back I'm going to probably bet on, it's going to be James Cook. Ramondre Stevenson, I brought him up when I talked about Damien Harris. That's another guy I would like to get my hands on. He's a premium handcuff. He could possibly even maybe basically split 50-50. I mean, I remember last year it would be a drive with Damien Harris, next drive Ramondre Stevenson. He's a guy that can provide you flex value already in his situation. And if Damien Harris gets banged up, all of a sudden you got a really good solid RB2 on your roster. James Robinson. Obviously, he's been a very good fantasy back in the past. You saw the guy in the previous top 10, Travis Etienne, the guy that was hurt. He was hurt last year. He's Trevor Lawrence's former, although they are still partners from his Clemson days. But I like Etienne. I like the juice that he can bring. He had a whole offseason of being in recovery. James Robinson is coming off that torn Achilles, so we'll have to see where he is and where that backfield there is in down there in Jacksonville. But we'll have to see how the situation plays out. A couple more guys I can mention. Nyheim Hines, obviously he's the backup there to Jonathan Taylor. But I will say this as a Colts fan. I put this actually in my article I wrote the other day for ColtsWire.com. Go check that out. A little plug there. But Frank Reich said it himself. Like, the team understands, like, they got away from Nyheim last year, and with them not bringing in like any other wide receivers, they're going to have to count on their playmakers, and that's what Nyheim Hines is. And back in like May, Frank Reich literally said, if I was a fantasy football owner, I would definitely want Hines on my team. So they're going to use him in unique ways. They're going to line him up in slot. They're going to try to get him more touches. You're going to see him and Taylor on the field at times. And, you know, as a Colts fan, I definitely don't want to see it to happen at all. But, you know, if Taylor gets banged up, has to miss a game or two, Nyheim Hines has proven in the past, if he ever gets a larger opportunity, he can give you a good RB2 week if he's got an opportunity. And then Marlon Mack, former Colt, whenever he didn't get much playing time because Jonathan Taylor basically ran away with the job last year. But when he got some opportunity at the beginning of the year, coming off a torn Achilles, I thought he looked good. And he's got the opportunity to win the Texans backfield. And if the reports come out over these next few weeks, Mack is dominating the touches in Houston. He can be a guy that gets you like a flex value at least. But it's something to watch. Again, I think the running back rankings are going to fluctuate over these next few weeks because you're going to see camp reports. You're going to see the preseason games, who's getting the snaps, who's ahead of who on the depth charts, and then also too, unfortunate injuries do happen throughout practices in the preseason, and that creates more opportunities, and that's going to fluctuate, and that definitely happens in the running back room. Let's go ahead and put a bow on this episode, going through looking at the final 10 guys, just kind of guys, you know, just to watch for in their situations. Kenneth Walker, who's competing with Rashaad Penny. You know, Penny's definitely got the nod because of his production, and he's a veteran, but Kenneth Walker is one of those guys that can potentially be a player that you're going to plug into your lineup by the back end of the schedule. Khalil Herbert as a handcuff to David Montgomery. Same thing with Darrell Henderson to Cam Akers. And obviously, these are basically these guys, Alexander Madison to Dalvin Cook. Those are guys, some are handcuffs you want to consider. Now, a situation to monitor is Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert down there in Miami. Now, keep in mind, Miami also has Sony Michel. They also have Myles Gaskin from last year's team. And I want to say they have another running back. I'm just forgetting off the top of my head. But they got Mike McDaniel, the running game coordinator from San Francisco. I'm a huge fan of what he's going to bring. And that's another Shanahan system, which is usually a back that you want to have. So they gave Chase Edmonds money. So if you follow the money, you would assume that Chase Edmonds would end up getting most of the touches. But Raheem Mostert was literally the running back for Mike McDaniel in San Francisco that had great success underneath him. So if Mike McDaniel wants to go with a trusty option, a guy that he knows his system, it may be Raheem Mostert. So it's going to be one of those guys. Maybe it fluctuates throughout the season, but that's the situation to pay attention to out of these practice reports and these preseason games going forward. And then a couple guys to keep an eye on. Gus Edwards, that's another J.K. Dobbins handcuff if you're looking for that. Jamal Williams, DeAndre Swift's handcuff. And then Kenneth Gainwell, that's another one to watch. You would assume he was a handcuff to Miles Sanders, but then there was a report that came out, I believe it was this morning, that Kenneth Gainwell was getting first-team reps over Miles Sanders, and Miles Sanders was working with the second-team offense. Now, I'm still a believer in Miles Sanders. He's still up on my rankings. Again, That's why you got to be able to adapt with new information. So pay attention to that situation. It's still early, man. They might be wanting to see how Kenneth looked today and Miles right back in the lineup. So that's why you just want to pay attention to the reports, see how these preseason plays out. Do the eye test. That's what I love to do with these preseason games. I try to watch as many of them as I can and try to do the eye test with some of these guys and see how they are looking on the field. But yeah, those are my initial running back rankings. I love to hear who you guys are wanting. Is there anybody that you disagree with that you think is going to have a big year? Definitely get in my comment section. Let me know what you guys are thinking for the running backs going forward for the upcoming fantasy football season. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you do hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I want to grow this channel as much as I can throughout between now and the whole season with it coming up. Next video, guys, will see from me. I'm going to do my wide receiver rankings next week. I will be doing my tight end next week, and then I did get a suggestion in my comments from my good friend Eric. I'm going to be doing deep sleepers, a video on that. I'll probably be looking at players from each position group for you guys to target, maybe probably in the double digits. I'll format it at some point. But other than that, hit that like, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys in my next video. Peace out.